Hi, good morning everyone. Thank you very much for being here. And today we'll be having a quick panel discussion on the future potential of solar PV market in Malaysia. So I'll start off quickly by introducing our panel for discussion today. Firstly, we have Dr. Syakirah, Dato Abdullah TNB, Head of Business Assessment and Engineering from TNB Renewables. Dr. Wan is an electrical engineer by training, has recently completed her PhD on the same topic. She has 20 years of experience in power systems, and her recent portfolio covers international and local energy-related business development, focusing particularly on renewable energy. We have also Mr. Simon Wong, who is the Sales Director for Asia Pacific at Seraphim Solar. With 15 plus years of experience in renewable energy, he currently leads the sales and business development in the APAC region for Seraphim Solar Energy Module Division. We also have Mr. Borham Chong, Head of Business Development and Managing Director Malaysia for NEFIN Group. Mr. Chong has been responsible for building NEFIN Group's commercial and industrial business and developing NEFIN Malaysia to become one of the largest CNI solar project developers in Malaysia. He's also currently leading NEFIN Group in the expansion of carbon neutrality offerings. We have Mr. Chor Jack, who is a partner at law firm Christopher and Lee Ong. He specializes in project development and financing. Among many other notable recognitions, he's rated by Legal 500 as a next-generation partner for projects and energy. Jack has significant experience advising on the development and financing of infrastructure projects. He has advised on an extensive range of renewable energy matters. And last but definitely not least, we have Mr. KK Kong, Group CEO of Maqo Solar. Mr. Kong is currently the Managing Director of Maqo Solar Malaysia. He's a Sustainable Energy Development Authority certified grid-connected photovoltaic designer, and he has been involved in bond financing and engagement with various stakeholders in the sector. His passion is to help companies and organizations go green and go solar. And finally, let me just introduce myself as well. So I'm Sulina. I'm a principal based in Roland Berger's Kuala Lumpur operations. Roland Berger is a global management consulting firm. I specifically work in the space of economic development, sustainability, as well as renewable energy across markets in Southeast Asia. So once again, welcome to this session, and let's get started. So perhaps we can start with a discussion on Malaysia's targets for renewable energy. The Malaysian Renewable Energy Roadmap targets 31% of renewables to be installed by 2025 and 40% by 2030. For solar, this translates into an increase of around 6 gigawatt of extra capacity by 2035. Perhaps a round of what are your views on these targets? Are they realistic? Are they not ambitious enough? And how Malaysia could progress on this? Mr. Chong, maybe we can start with you.
Hello, is it working? Okay, so I think just my personal views on the 31% by 2025 target. It is a reasonably aggressive goal where it is achievable. It is not extremely aggressive by some of the standards that we've seen in some other countries, especially more developed countries. But considering the technical difficulties that will come as we exceed, let's say, about 20% of renewable energy in the grid, including instability of supply and also ensuring the stability of supply and costs of energy, I would say that this is a pretty balanced goal.
Given that 6 gigawatt in addition is supposed to come from solar, Malaysia's current installed capacity is less than 2 gigawatt today.
A lot of preparation in terms of grid stability to ensure that this RE penetration is safely connected to the grid, and we cannot afford to see any disturbance to the grid, right? So in order for us to achieve that ambitious target, there's a few elements of what we can say enabler to ensure that it is safely connected to the grid. Because if you can see gigawatts of variable RE, including solar, in this case, will definitely impose some intermittency to the grid. So with that, at certain point of threshold, probably energy storage is needed to support the higher penetration of RE. So when we talk about RE, right, of course today's forum is mainly on solar, but don't discount any other RE resources as well. We have a lot in Malaysia. We have biomass, biogas in a smaller scale. We also have mini hydros, hydro generations also contributed as RE. So in a nutshell, I can say that our target is ambitious. It can be materialized with a lot of support from a lot of stakeholders, including the grid operator and etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Syakirah. Any other perspectives on the targets, including where we stand today and how we can get there?
I would also just add a little bit on Syakirah's comment that the preparation partly is from the growth of RE, whether it's in solar or other solutions. Unfortunately, Malaysia does not have sufficient wind resources to do commercially feasible wind projects. But additionally, the expansion and regional collaboration is also an important part. We've had a recent upgrade in the intertie between Malaysia and Singapore. I think there's also discussions on furthering the contract between Malaysia and Thailand on expanding the grid capacity. So the kind of regional and international cooperation on sharing resources is also an important part in achieving these targets.
Great, thanks very much, Mr. Chong. So looking at Malaysia's solar capacity, we have largely relied on large-scale solar. In particular, we've had 4 auctions so far. The plant up of the previous solar LSS round stands as less than 50% today. Maybe to get the panel's view on why is that and what are the challenges that are being faced in this space particularly. Mr. Wong, maybe we can start.
Hi. Maybe I'll take it from a manufacturer point of view.
Yep.
I think because of the recent volatile market happening in the globally, the shortage of raw material, the cost implementation for a project has actually increases, including logistic costs, manpower costs, and other things. That makes the banks actually relook into the financial modeling, the financial returns of all those kind of projects. So, I mean, that is definitely one of the roadblocks that a lot of investors are facing. So, I think we also have to look into the bank's capability of reviewing such project over here.
In terms of potential limits on the capacity, would larger projects, for instance, create greater economies of scale? So in the past, our LSS has been limited in terms of capacity. Would this be something that potentially supports the industry moving forward?
I think it could. Definitely for larger scale project, you should have the economical scales and all those things. But a lot of depends on the infrastructures that the transmission and distribution line that they actually have. Because I think what Malaysia doesn't want to see is kind of a electricity curtailment that happening in a lot of countries. That would change the impacts for a lot of investors. So I think what we have actually mentioned earlier, the transmission and the distribution infra is very important. Whether they do have the sufficient connection points and other things.
Right, right.
I think just to add to the points, I think the difficulty of the take-up, I mean, so the 50% of the take-up rates, right? I think I have a slightly different take on it. I mean, yes, module prices have increased and all that, but I think it's just poor planning, right? Typically, right? And why I say poor planning is because when you speak to a lot of developers, so international, foreign, local developers, what is quite evident is that in Malaysia, in this sort of rounds, right, people seem to have the view, be it with developers or even the authorities, that lower is better, right? So everyone goes for zero, right? Everyone doesn't, I mean, there is very little buffer, right? And when prices move just very slightly, right, the projects just can't be, progressed. And I think coupled with the fact that in Malaysia, right, solar projects, especially utility scale ones, are still very tightly controlled, right, by the government. So even though the projects may actually be financed by certain parties, right? Some people have a lot of equity financing of cheaper cost of capital, right? They want to finance, but it's very difficult for them to come in because there are limited ways in which they can do so. Because some people do go ahead and do it, right? But by right, there are all these processes. You need to get approvals and all that, and it's very tough to sort of overcome that hurdle. Right? So I think those are the key issues as well.
Hi, to add on to that, Malaysia is a very unique country where there are two schools of thought, as in one side, we want the solar farm to be as big as possible, up to 100 mega, okay? And the other school of thoughts is it should be split to a smaller category so that it can benefit some more players. Okay, so, and Malaysia is a fairly small country, so the quota being allocated in every round was quite limited. So, examples, yesterday, the virtual PPA program is also being announced, and the limit is set to maximum 30 mega per application, you see. So, probably that is the trend for Malaysia for now. Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thanks. Maybe moving on in terms of distributed solar. How is the distributed solar market evolving in Malaysia? And is there a strong demand or uptake for this, potentially in the commercial and industrial space as well? What is your experience in this space? Maybe Mr. Chong?
Sure. I think Malaysia, as one of the countries in Southeast Asia with a relatively large manufacturing base, has a lot of opportunity for distributed solar, and we are seeing continued interest and uptake in distributed solar. The new VPPA policy is another contributing factor that we see continued support for this. And because many of the manufacturing in Malaysia is considered high-tech manufacturing, or the factories are multinationals and many are Fortune 500 companies, so this also adds to the bankability or the ease of financing of the projects by having bankable off-takers.
Mr. Kong, anything to add in terms of commercial and industrial take-up, particularly we're looking at distributed solar?
Yes. Maqo, as a EPC company for some investors, we have seen, and also we do some direct end user customers. So it used to be people come to us and say they want to cut down their TNB bill electricity, but recently they come to do solar because they want to go green and ESG. Okay, so that is a very exciting and moment for all the industry players, as in the awareness is there. It's not purely about dollars and cents. It's more on the awareness, which is, as an industry, like my passion is to actually promote the decarbonization, for our countries or for our planet, you see. So, yeah, I'm seeing very exciting futures ahead for distributed rooftop systems. Thank you.
Great, great. So I think that brings me to our next question in terms of corporate PPA, so very much related to what you just talked about in terms of strong demand that you're seeing from companies going green. So given this demand, once off-site corporate PPAs with wheeling are allowed in Malaysia, how do you see this in terms of impacting the solar industry? Will it create stronger momentum going forward? Any thoughts on this space?
Okay, maybe I'll take this one. So, as we are all aware, Suruhanjaya Tenaga in their website has just announced that the corporate PPA guideline has been announced yesterday, and as mentioned just now, the limit is around 30 megawatt per solar developer. So when we talk in the market, right, the demand is so high, especially for people like data centers or manufacturing or even food suppliers. Like everyone wants clean energy. They want to declare they are using power based on 100% RE. So we can sense the demand is so high. So when there's a limit on 30 megawatts, right? So I'm representing TNB Renewables. We are also a developer in this sense. We think that, yeah, probably the limit is too small for the huge demand. So we can see that in the future, if there is opportunity for the grid to take more, there's a lot of demand. And as we discussed just now also, by putting some limits, there's also some hindrance in terms of economies of scale. We know that normally the larger the scale, we can extract more economies opportunities. But probably not the case yet here in Malaysia, because the regulators are trying to be, they want to make sure that most players will get some piece of the cake. But we aware that the demand is there. It's just that probably on developer side, we need to ensure that there's available land, for example, which is very also limited in Malaysia. We need to find new ways of putting solar, for example, floating solars or even offshore solars. In the future, we don't want to we want to compete too much on the land usage, but there's a lot more that we can do on the land. Agriculture, food, housing, and then etc. So alternatives should be explored lah, what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Syakirah.
I think maybe add on from that, we actually had a very minor panel discussion before we even started talking about the VPPA and all those things. Malaysia has started with this 30 megawatt caps and all those things, but I'm listening to a lot of people actually making a comment saying that there isn't enough connection point for 33 kVA to actually make the project more viable, that actually can reduce the cost of generation. So, I mean, this is something that we have to start somewhere. I think this is where ST has started and other things, but subsequently they might increase it to the next round for a bigger one, or they actually can increase the capacity.
Thanks, Mr. Simon. In terms of other developments in Malaysia, so Malaysia has also announced plans to launch the voluntary carbon market later this year. How will this impact the solar PV market? Any perspectives on that? Mr. Chow?
Sure, I think that, that is actually kind of related to the VPPA policy, where it is also kind of people who already have a intent to voluntarily buy carbon offsets or renewable energy credits to participate in these kind of schemes. So having a voluntary carbon market which allows for greater access and greater understanding of corporates in such a market would potentially help, for example, greater access to the VPPA projects, which then grows into direct greenfield developments.
Maybe I add a bit more on that. So in this VPPA, right, the customer will normally get the REC. So it's depends on the customer whether they want to keep it or probably trade it in the future. So that's one key feature that we've seen in the VPPA guideline. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Syakirah. I guess the next question brings me to Malaysia's electricity market reform and liberalisation. How will this impact the industry, in particular solar PV developments, since we're discussing solar today? Any perspectives on that? Perhaps we can hear from Mr. Jack on your legal perspective of market liberalisation.
I think market liberalisation has been spoken about for a long time, right? I mean, there's always been moves to do it. I think Malaysia, being Malaysia, right? Every single program, every single industry that the country does, it's always baby steps, right? Not absolutely wrong. For example, if you look at our telco rollout, right? 4G, 5G. I mean, just to draw a sort of comparison. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, how come we still don't have 5G? The government is not doing anything." And again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the government. Just when you speak to industry players, they're actually saying our 4G network, because we did it step by step, we've learned from other people's mistakes. Our 4G coverage is actually pretty good, right? And it's actually quite consistent, right? As compared to countries which immediately just jumped to 5G and implemented it wholesale. So I think for energy itself, I mean, I think the same approach will still be, I mean, because this is entrenched in our mindset, right? That the same approach will be taken. Liberalization, I think, will come slowly, right? But I think it is absolutely required. Because I think there were questions just now as to how to spur growth of the industry, take-up rates and all that. I think ultimately it depends on the government's direction, right? Even 2 gigawatts now up to grow it to 6 gigawatts in 2035. I think ultimately depends on what is the quota that will be launched every year, right? How aggressive the government wants to be, right? And I think liberalization is extremely important. Not only announcing projects, but also how do I put it? Liberalization in the distribution and transmission networks even, right? Because currently, right, yes, I know, I mean, TNB is doing it, they're doing a good job, but to be quicker, you need more players, right? For it to be more competitive, of course, not any Tom, Dick and Harry, but really real big players to come in and sort of help put in place the infrastructure where TNB may not even want to be, right? I think that's important. Right, so not only awarding projects, but also the infrastructure itself, right? And grid connection points, for example, right? Liberalization in terms of investments, for example, foreigners, right, are still limited in how they can come in, right? If we have more avenues for them to put capital in the country, for them to bring in human capital, I think that will greatly move this forward.
Thanks.
Yeah, to add on to Jack, so I look at it as Malaysia is moving slowly but surely towards that. Like the VPPA is one of the very good starts, that allowing the solar developer to take more risks in terms of offering the energies, in the SMP market, the free market. That is one of the important steps, preparing the industry players towards more open, liberalized energy market, So, and also it's a big steps, towards that. We really walk the talk, to be a carbon neutral countries, where hopefully with this, attract more foreign direct investments to our countries. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kong. In terms of regional power markets, I think at the beginning of this discussion we talked about some collaboration opportunities, extension of cooperation with Thailand, etc. Do we expect to see significant regional power market integration or cross-border trade in terms of electricity? Will this have an impact or spur more solar PV in Malaysia? Maybe your perspectives from the industry?
I think we have been hearing a lot of bilateral country energy sharing and all those things. But there's a lot of policies which is not clear between the countries. Although there's a lot of private companies doing a discussion over here. Me coming from Singapore, we actually recently have a lot of announcement. We wanted to import low carbon electricity from Indonesia, from Malaysia and all those things, even all the way from Australia. But besides legal issue, there's a lot of technical issue that you have to clear and all those things. So, and this might definitely increase the requirement for RE, or regardless whether it's solar, especially in Malaysia. But each country, we do have our own RE target to achieve. But this will definitely spur out a lot of potential in the RE market, not only just solar. I mean, for a small country like Singapore, we need our big brothers and sisters from the neighbor to actually help us to achieve that. But this is something that we need both government to agree on. So the government policy is something that I think this is missing right now. There's a lot of discussion that this is something we hope to see that's coming by.
Maybe I add a bit on that. Personally, I have been involved in the project of connecting Peninsula Malaysia to Indonesia, but it doesn't materialize. So I have some experience on that. So talking about interconnection, right? If we see that we want to aim to be somewhere in the RE penetration based on the projection, I think one of the solutions to make sure that our grid is stable is via the interconnection. We have one up north with Thailand, we have one down south with Singapore, but if we have more, definitely it will be our grid will be strengthened whenever we face any fluctuations in terms of frequency or whatever. So if we can see in the Europe, right, it's really interconnected, so it's very stable, even though RE is high, but the grid is stable. So I hope one day Malaysia also can be highly interconnected with other countries and also other countries in our region, ASEAN or Asia, bigger Asia. So that's my view on the interconnection and how it can help the stability of the grid when the RE penetration is higher.
Thanks, Dr. Syakirah. So maybe coming close to the end of our discussion, but just touching on some newer opportunities, for instance, green hydrogen, also in terms of storage opportunities moving forward. Do you expect green hydrogen production in Malaysia to take off for domestic use or even for exports potentially in the coming maybe 5 to 10 years, or what kind of time frame do you see? Maybe Dr. Syakirah?
Okay, this is my personal view on green hydrogen, right? For us, we think it is not that, not that immediate, because we know generating hydrogen from RE, for example, hydro or solar, in terms of commercial, is still a challenge nowadays. But if we have the scale, we can bring down the price. And bear in mind, the hydrogen that we are producing from RE, it must be very competitive to compete with the hydrogen that is produced, for example, in the Middle East, where their LCOE of solar is very, very low. So the competitiveness is very important. If, let's say, we produce hydrogen today in Malaysia, the green hydrogen, I don't think we are at the competitive price yet. Yeah, we need to drive down the cost basically.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic. Green hydrogen, the next hype or future is still to be determined. So Malaysia is blessed by other abundance of resources. So hydrogen probably is just one of the choices. It's a very strategic move for every country, whether they choose which technologies or resources to develop. If I look at our MyRent policy and other things, hydrogen is not on super top of the list. But we applaud that, like Sarawak State is one of the 4 frontier of this hydrogen program. So, and yeah, all sorts of new technologies is good for our industries. And most importantly is the infrastructures, the whole supply chain need to be built concurrently. If not, if just a pure producer, it won't, there's no people who would like to invest, you see. It's a very chicken and egg things, and we need the governments and the big boys to lead the way, for if we are serious in this green hydrogen developments. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all our panelists. So maybe as some concluding remarks, I can go to each one of you for a quick summary on your perspectives for the future of solar for Malaysia and what you would like to see or to aspire to. Dr. Syakirah, maybe we start with you.
Yeah, I think solar has a very high potential in Malaysia. Just bear in mind that we have limitation in terms of land, maybe other option we can explore. That's if you're talking about solar only lah. Definitely there's other resources of RE.
For me personally, I love the regulation that actually implemented in Malaysia for solar renewable, for implementation. Because for me to travel around the region, I see a lot of countries having curtailment after they do that. But in Malaysia, they did a real good regulated process that actually do it. I think we should keep that going. This is something we should see.
For me, I would just say that for renewable energy, as we increase the renewable energy penetration, key considerations which the industry may not always think about include equal access to opportunities in the industry, employment, cost of energy, stability of supply, and so on, right? So I think Malaysia, in this sense, has done pretty well in that, let's say, in the past almost 10 years, the renewable energy industry has not seen like explosive growth, but pretty sustainable growth, right? As compared to some of the other countries in the region, which has seen explosive growth and then implosion. Yeah. So I think for the industry's health in the long term, such policies are important and should be continued.
Yeah, I think what we can foresee is that the industry will continue as it is, slowly but surely, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I mean, what I hope is that there will be a little bit more liberalization. I think, as mentioned, a little bit more equal opportunities for people to participate in the programs, right? And a little bit more clarity in terms of how, in terms of thresholds, participation requirements, instead of having very general and vaguish sort of concepts.
Yeah. So hopefully the next governments will be even more aggressive and supportive on this renewable energy industries, number one. Which is, to our surprise, this VPPA come quite timely, while we are waiting for the LSS5 for a long time. I hope that the industry can collaborate more. Like myself is collaborating with some of the leading players in the market. Hopefully we can join force and create more jobs and opportunity for the countries. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to our panelists. That brings us to the end of our panel discussion forum for today.